We're back. It's 2025 and boy, do I have something so special to share with you guys today. It's the biggest plant that's ever come into my collection. Hang tight and I'll just go get it and show you. Oh, get a load of this bad boy. Operculicarya decaryi. Picked this up from the same lady who gifted me all those other mad cordex plants not too long ago. This was one that she hung on to a little bit longer, and it is an incredible and very special plant. However, problem is it's been sitting in my greenhouse now for a couple of weeks, just in a plastic bag. I haven't had a pot to put it in, but I've got a pot, I've got the soil, and I've got a little bit of time today to get this absolute monster of a plant sorted out. So that's what we're going to do. Stick around and let's have a look at it. Now, what exactly is an Operculicarya decaryi? Well, simply put, it's a Madagascar tree, a pachycaul tree. And if you've been watching this channel more than about 10 minutes, pachycaul means that it's got a swollen, thickened trunk. Really good for storing water, enabling it to survive long periods of drought. This one, I would say this trunk here, certainly not as thick as it can get. Maybe with a bit of time, we'll see how we go. These plants in the cooler months will grow quite beautiful, delicate little reddish brown flowers, either male or female. You won't have the same on the single plant. Don't know what this one is yet, we'll find out in time. And I suppose the other distinguishing feature about these plants are these beautiful, quite delicate little leaves, which makes them a prime specimen for bonsaiing. I don't know the first thing about how to bonsai a plant well. I'm not going to try and teach myself with this one. I'm going to just let this one grow as big as it wants to. Now, the plan for today, get this bad boy into a pot and hopefully it's going to thrive. We'll talk about that now, shall we? Now, the conventional wisdom says you can fatten the trunk in a pachycaul tree by keeping it in too small a pot. You can see the size of the root ball here. This plant has been absolutely pot bound for a very long time. Hasn't really seemed to make the trunk thicken up all that much. So I've got a much bigger pot. Found it on the side of the road a few weeks ago. Just haven't had the time to pop this thing up and make the necessary video. To keep this thing alive, I've been dunking that root ball just in a huge bucket of water. And it's just been sitting in its plastic bag in the greenhouse, acclimatizing to the conditions. Normally, a plant like this, I'd keep it in quarantine, bringing any plant in from an outside space. You want to keep it away from your other plants in case it's got mealybugs or other pests. But the problem here is the sheer size of this plant. Didn't have too many options in terms of putting it somewhere else, so just been leaning in there. I did give it a bit of a visual inspection, didn't see anything wrong with it, so hopefully now the rest of my plants aren't all infested with anything, but I think that's pretty unlikely. So anyway, enough of my random talk. Let's get this thing into a pot, shall we? Now, what's the plan here? Got a bit of mesh. It's going to go over the drainage hole, stop us from unnecessarily losing some soil out the bottom there. Nice big terracotta pot. That's going to help to kind of dry out this soil. So even though the root ball is quite a bit smaller than the pot itself, I'm hoping that the pot will help wick a bit of water away so it's never standing in any sort of real slushy, mushy, waterlogged soil. Speaking of soil, this is what we're using today. Now, it's a little bit different to my usual kind of succulent and cactus mix. Half organic and half mineral. The mineral component though, in this case, it's mostly scoria. Scoria is a volcanic mineral and it's absolutely dirt cheap here in Australia. Used as a kind of decorative mulch in many instances. So a bag of this stuff costs absolutely nothing compared to like pumice, which has to be imported. There's also a bit of zeolite in the mix. Zeolite is this fantastic mineral that assists in sort of holding on and slowly releasing nutrients. Works beautifully with fertilizers. So with that in mind, we're going to get this plant into this pot now and let it hopefully enjoy a nice, long and fruitful existence. But first I'm going to need to backfill this pot. All right, we're going to backfill and hopefully not destroy anything in the process. Let's hope I've mixed up enough of this dirt. All right, let's see, how is this going to go? Magic. All right, now this is where things are going to get a little bit dicey, trying to fill in this pot without having a tree fall on me, so I'm going to do this a bit carefully. Now, this plant is going to be living out here in full sun, and if you're going to do that, I've said it 1,000 times, it's really important that you quite slowly acclimatise your plants to that full sun, because if you don't, they're going to burn. And especially a plant as big and old as this one, it'd be a real shame. I'm led to believe that the lady who owned this plant had it for about 10 years before passing it on to me. How big exactly it was, how old it was when she got it, I don't know for sure. But, you know, you don't want to put a plant of that kind of stature to waste by burning it to a crisp. Once it is acclimatised, and that's kind of what it's been doing over the last few weeks, getting used to my conditions. Once it is acclimatised, these Operculicaryas, in habitat, they just live in that sort of full exposed sun. They're not rainforest plants or anything, and they'll happily tolerate that exposure. In fact, they're really quite hardy. Cold temperatures are fine. In fact, they're a necessity in terms of their flowering. They just won't tolerate frost. I don't get any frost here, so we should be all good. It is deciduous, it'll lose its leaves over the winter time, but that's pretty typical. And often a lot of these plants, when they're transplanted, will lose their leaves as well. It's quite a common thing. This one has been shedding a few of its leaves, probably because it's been a little bit underwatered while it's been moving it into its space. It's always fun coming out into the greenhouse, trying to maneuver around it and coming back with a head covered in tiny little Operculicarya leaves. But anyway, I'm glad it's coming out. Is that going to stay in place? Oh, amazing, it's staying in place. This isn't the only species of Operculicarya. This is certainly the most prominent in cultivation. There's another one that's even more suited to bonsai culture, called Operculicarya pachycaul, and they're fantastic. I've got a couple of little seedlings which I'll show you, and rather than having this very tall vertical growth habit, they kind of grow a little bit all over the place, and they've got very fat trunks, which makes them perhaps even better suited to bonsai culture. Not easy plants to get your hand on though. All right. Oh. Okay. Level that out a bit. Might need a little bit more soil in there. The roots are a little bit exposed. They've got fat tuberous roots, which could be a bit of a feature. I don't know. I'll have a think about what I want to do here. But probably need a little bit more soil, but I'll just show you where we're at. Look at that. Excuse all the rubbish in the background. Now, as is always the way when I plant these things, it's probably facing the wrong direction. And I hadn't really intended on turning this pot around, but I'm going to try and do it now. See how we go. Look at this. Get a load of that. Absolutely stunning plant, and it's huge. So there it is, in its place, in a pot. I'm going to let that rest for a few days without watering, without doing anything too drastic to it. One of the easiest ways to introduce rot into your succulent plants is to just water them in straight away once they're in new soil. You want any little wounds that might be on the roots to have time to heal. Once they've healed over, go for your life. These plants will take plenty of water, especially in their growth season. Now, I said I'd share with you Operculicarya pachypus, and this one here, this is just a little seedling, maybe even 6 months old. And as you can see, unlike this one here with a very vertical growth habit, this one seems positively allergic to growing upright. It's going to be a very interesting plant when it puts on a bit of size. I do have some that are a bit older, not much bigger, but you can see those trunks starting to fatten up, and you can see the similarity in their leaves. Really not much difference between them except the way that they grow. Anyway, that's Operculicarya decaryi for you. Been a really exciting plant to add to my collection, and like I said, it's the biggest thing I've got. Won't even fit in there. It's been taking up a massive amount of space for the last couple of weeks, so I'm actually kind of relieved to have it out of there. So that's it for today. Welcome back for 2025. I hope you learned something. I hope this was interesting, and happy growing. I'll see you next time.